Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's installment of the Bama Factor with Alex Taylor. I'm your host, as always, Alex Taylor, and took the week off last week. Had a lot going on. Was out of town last week with a company trip, so wasn't able to record last week, but really gave me some time. One for a break, one to just enjoy some time with my wife, and us to get away a little bit. But I am back on the mic this week. Very glad to be back on here and be previewing Alabama's first round matchup in the CFP. But really, the first thing that I want to address, I'm going to touch on the SEC championship game very briefly. There's not really much to touch on, just not a good performance from our offense. Just we looked lazy, like our offense didn't show up. Our defense was put in horrible situations. Our defense was really doing all that they could. But overall, at the end of the day, it just offense was anemic. Ty Simpson continued to struggle. Not having a run game was absolutely just it wasn't helpful at all. And I expected more out of us, but hats off to Georgia. They were ready to play, and they made adjustments from the first game. So outside of that, there's not really much to say. But nonetheless, the Tide are back in the playoff, and I just want to give my immediate reaction to Alabama getting into the playoff this season. Becomes the first three-loss team to ever get into the playoff. And, I think, when I was watching Alabama, Georgia that Saturday night, I honestly did not think the committee was going to put us in because of how wishy-washy the committee was. But we did see that the jump over Notre Dame on the previous Tuesday really proved and kind of showed a little bit of the committee's hand, being like they were not going to punish Alabama if they lost that game. And, do I feel like we deserved to get in? I actually did not. But, I was still happy that we've got an opportunity, and it's created a lot of controversy, obviously, and it seems like every time that Alabama gets in, when the media thinks they don't deserve it, or other teams think that they don't deserve it, it's always controversy when it's Alabama. But if it's anybody else, it's not. It isn't a controversy. They earned it, but we're not going to open that can. But as you can see here, if you're watching this, we have the full playoff bracket on the right side of your screen. So the number one overall seed, Indiana, followed by Ohio State is the 2 seed, Georgia is the 3 seed, Texas Tech is the 4 seed, and then your first round games that are on campus, you have Oregon at 5 taking on the 12 seed James Madison Dukes. You have the 6 seed Ole Miss taking on the Tulane Green Wave, who are the 11 seed. You have Texas A&M, who's the 7 seed, taking on the 10 seed Miami, and obviously the 8 and 9 game, respectively, Oklahoma and Alabama, obviously our main game of topic here on this show. So I just want to give my overview real quick of just the playoff in this retrospect. This is a pretty good bracket here. You look at the top 4 teams, very solid, and you look at really 5 through 12, still solid. I'm not a huge fan of Tulane and James Madison in this. 2 group of 5s. I don't think they belong. I think there needs to be something separate. I think you need to keep this strictly Power 4. I think you're going to see. Tulane and Ole Miss have already played earlier this year, and Ole Miss absolutely throttled Tulane. James Madison has to go on the road to Eugene against a very high-powered offense. It's a very good defense. This isn't Sun Belt ball. You're not playing 5 and 6 and 7 lost teams every day, or every week. You're playing Oregon, who is a really, really, really good team, and who only has 1 loss to Indiana. So outside of that, just I mean, 21.5 point underdog is James Madison. So, I mean, if they make it a game, if they make it close, or, they're able to compete, more power to them. But I don't see that being a close game. I don't see Tulane and Ole Miss being a close game. I just really don't. You're going to see the talent gap here. You're going to see the level of play here and the domination, the strength, the speed. Group of five teams don't belong in this playoff. And I think the committee should have learned their lesson with that when they put Cincinnati in against Alabama in 2021, and Alabama did what they did to them. But other than that, it's the final decision of the committee, and not to demean the seasons that Tulane and James Madison have had. I think they've had great seasons, but they need to have something separate for the group of five. It doesn't need to be included with a power four because, let's be honest here. 95, 99% of the time, a power four is really going to get the better of a group of five. People can say, well, Boise State competed with Penn State last year. It doesn't matter if you compete. Go and win. Go make it a real ball game. But other than that, just interesting. And, you look at, really like this, obviously our game with Oklahoma, but you look at Miami, Texas A&M, and obviously Miami and Notre Dame, the big argument for that last spot, but really, in my opinion, it wasn't really an argument to be had because, Miami had head-to-head over them. And, I've said constantly, if you take away Alabama playing in the SEC title game and they don't play that, and you take that game away entirely, Alabama and Notre Dame were both 10-2. Alabama finished first in their conference. Alabama had a higher strength of schedule, or a better strength of schedule, higher FPI, a better strength of record, and more ranked wins, and better wins overall. And the BCS model in the computers also had them ahead of Notre Dame as well. So Alabama still had the better resume. Alabama would have gotten in over Notre Dame anyway. So we wouldn't be having this conversation again. It was always going to be Miami and Notre Dame is who the conversation came down to. But nonetheless, a good field. Alabama travels to Oklahoma for a rematch of a game earlier in the year. Indiana awaits the winner of this game in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Obviously, Georgia waiting in the Sugar Bowl. I believe Ohio State is awaiting in the, I would say, probably the Orange Bowl. I would have to check to see what these really are. But I know your semifinals, I think one is at the Peach Bowl and the other one, it's probably at the Fiesta and the Cotton Bowl, I think. So I think this probably the Orange and the Peach Bowl that are the other two quarterfinals. So, and obviously your championship game in Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. So obviously, starting on December the 19th, Alabama, Oklahoma, obviously getting the first round started as well. So we're going to jump right into just, a little bit of the preview here and, really the offensive outlook for Alabama. So this is a really, I think the most important key of this game is because if we look back to that matchup at the beginning of November, second week of November, it seems like Alabama's offense was, one of the main problems. And then when you look back at that game, Alabama having over 400 yards of offense, Ty Simpson not playing horrible, but obviously having two costly turnovers. One was a pick six. He almost threw another interception. He did throw one that got called back. A late fumble in the game that set up a field goal, which was then we didn't realize at the time, but it was the game-winning field goal at that point. But it was just the lack again, just to run the ball. And Daniel Hill had a good game. He had over 70 yards on the ground. Probably another 40 or 50 through. A couple of receptions that he had. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. But just really looking at that game, we moved the ball fairly well, and we had a botched field goal attempt that didn't go well before the half, which proved to be the turning point in the game as well. So, and Ryan Williams having a fumble on a punt return, Oklahoma scored 17 of their 23 points off of turnovers. And, they forced 3 turnovers, we forced 0. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in this episode. But I think the offensive outlook for the Tide is just, again, Ty Simpson's play has still not been what it was at the beginning of the year. And again, there's been rumors speculating that, is he hurt? Is there something going on, mentally? Is there, is there an outside factor? Is there something he's not seeing? Is he not trusting the play calls? And I think, I'm hoping what he said in his interview yesterday was true about, he's 100%, he's ready to go, he's not hurt, he's excited for the opportunity. I want to get the old Ty Simpson back. I want to get Ty who is firing on all cylinders, checking when it's necessary, and I think that's part of Ty's problem. I think he's trying to overcomplicate things. I think he's trying to read into the defense too much. I think he's trying to overcomplicate things, which is why it's taken forever to get the play off. And I think that he's not trusting the play call that's coming in from the coaches. And I just don't think you can have, a quarterback second guessing a coaching staff on that. I put a post out, a day after the SEC title game, and, I frankly said, you have 12 days, you have 9 practices, so to speak, to get either Austin Mack or Keelan ready for this game. We know that's probably not going to happen, but if Ty Simpson starts to struggle, if he legitimately starts to struggle in this game, and you don't have any points after the first quarter or after the first 2 or 3 drives, and I'm not talking about field goals, I'm talking about touchdowns. You need touchdowns in this game. I think you have to pull him. I think you have to make an executive decision, and I think that you need I think you need guys in there that Oklahoma doesn't have any game film on. They don't know the tendencies. They don't know his weak points. They don't know his checkoffs. Like it throws them for a loop. If you get what I'm saying there, and I'll still point back to the 2017 championship game. Nick Saban benches Jalen Hurts, who's 26-2 as a starter, and brings in Tua. Tua's played in some garbage time. He's had some experience, but he's played in garbage time when the game didn't matter. And you bring him in the biggest game of your life against the best defense they played all year, and Tua does what he does. So, it's just you didn't have a lot of film on him. And that's where they were able to really have success, because Georgia didn't know how to defend him. They were so keen and so keyed in on Jalen Hurts and stopping him that they didn't know how to stop Tua. So you can't tell me that bringing in Austin Mack or Keelan Russell wouldn't throw Oklahoma for a loop. Now, I know Brent Venables would adjust, but it would be hard to. So you can't tell me that doesn't provide some type of spark. But either way, I want Ty to have success. I wish him success. I want him to get back to the Ty Simpson that he was at the beginning of the season, that went to Athens, that went into Missouri, that played against Tennessee the way he did. I want that Ty back. I want that Ty that took care of the ball, that extended drives, that was lethal on third down, that was good in that was just lethal in the intermediate passing game. I want that Ty Simpson back. I want that aggressive Ty Simpson, the fearless Ty Simpson we saw. Not this passive, not this trying to play hero ball. Just go out there and play. Make the simple play. Make the simple read. Make the simple throw. That's all you got to do. And also looking, offensive outlook, our run game has got to complement this. It's got to help out. Jam is 100%. Hopefully we've heard for this game. Daniel Hill is going to play a big part. I think A.K. Deere might see some extended carries. I think you need to get Dre Washington involved. Again, guys haven't seen film on him all year. I would use him. He's a spark. I also think our wide receiver core's got to get going. Ryan Williams has got to get going. Jeremy's got to get going. Isaiah Horton has got to get really involved here, because still the Sooners in the secondary are not as strong as their front and their linebackers are. They're going to stack the box. They're going to give you weird looks, but their secondary is still their Achilles heel. We saw that in the first game. Ty still threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you've still got to look for opportunities like that and opportunities to stretch the field. Ryan Grubb has got to take those opportunities, and there's got to be better play calling. Ryan Grubb overall has been a disappointment, and he needs to get creative, open up this playbook, give them something they haven't seen, because they're preparing for a simplified offense. You've got to hit them with some surprises. It's the playoff now. It's a win or go home. you're not guaranteed next week. You're not guaranteed the next game. So you've got to pull something out and be creative. Offensive line has got to block, and thankfully we have everybody healthy. It looks like Parker Brailsford, Cam Dewberry are going to be back. Josh Schwabus is going to be a really big part of this, and it seems like he's trending towards playing Friday. Almost said Saturday. Force a habit. Seems like he's playing, so that's going to be huge. Even if he's 85, 90%, having him out there as a safety valve, that gives your quarterback some confidence. So having him back is going to be absolutely huge. Now switching over to the defensive side of the ball, and still, if you look at the defense, again, it hasn't been the problem. The defense has bailed us out time and time and time again. And again, the offense has just put us in bad situations. And Ty's inability to convert has just really just put us in horrible situations. And special teams hasn't helped either. Punting, the block punt against Georgia put us in a bad situation, put the defense in a horrible, horrible field position. But if you look at the defense and you look at, first of all, the big storyline, LT Overton's still out with a blood clot. Our thoughts and prayers to him, for a speedy recovery. I hope he has, I hope he has the opportunity to, play one more game for Alabama at least. Have a great NFL career. But, guys like Tim Keenan and, James Smith and Jordan Bernard and, Kelby Collins being back, they're going to be a big part. They've got to get through this Oklahoma offensive line. And, I think our linebackers, with Justin Jefferson being healthy, Deontay Lawson, and I look at Lawson, this is kind of the irony of this, for him, and it's almost like a poetic justice, so to speak, for him, because, this is the game last year at Norman where, Lawson season ended with a torn ACL. And, you wondered, if he would be back this year. He did return to Alabama. First couple games really didn't look like himself. And, but, the latter part of the season, he's gotten his speed back. He's gotten that, agility back again. So, I think this is a big thing for him to know that, hey, this is where my season ended last year. I got a little chance to come back and, really contribute and, help us get a win on the road. And, you look at Nikai Hill-Green, who's been a great addition this year. But I think you look at the secondary. I think you look at guys like Xavier Brown. You look at Domani Jackson, who had a great SEC title game, played very well. You look at Dijon Lee. I mean, All-American freshman this year. And you look at Bray Hubbard, probably the best guy in our secondary. You look at Keon Sabb. You look at Red Morgan, who I think is an X factor, as Kane Womack called him the best striker on the defense. So you look at guys like that, and you look at Xavier Mincy. You look at Cam Calhoun, who's getting extended reps. You look at Deshaun Jones. You look at how we have those guys set up. I think our secondary can do this. And, in my opinion, Satania for Oklahoma is the only one you really have to worry about. Outside of that, I know they got a couple tight ends, other wide receivers, okay, but Satania is their speedster. He's their guy. They want to get him in space. You shut him down, Mateer hasn't got a lot of options. And I'm just going to say on the other thing, Oklahoma's offense is still not that great because their offense really didn't do that much against us. They had one red zone touchdown because of a fumble on a punt return. Other than that, they did not just drive the field on Alabama. They never just drove the ball down Alabama's throat. Alabama was shutting them down, and there were 2 drop pick sixes in that game from Alabama. Justin Jefferson one and Red Morgan the other. They would have been walk-in pick sixes. And John Mateer is very antsy in the pocket. Now you have to contain his legs, and I think Kane Womack has something for that. But you got to be aggressive, and I think with Johan Pierre, Quay Russaw getting healthier, James Smith, I think Noah Carter, getting guys like him, Justin Hill. I think really getting guys like that and we've got to get after him. We've got to force him out. We've got to make him uncomfortable because, the more our defense can get them off the field and can get their defense really gassed, because that's kind of what Oklahoma or that's what Georgia did to us. They got our defense completely gassed because Their defense was stepping up and getting our offense off the field. We've got to do that. We've got to have long, sustained drives on offense. We've got to have shutdown defense. And we've got to keep their defense on the field, because no matter how elite your defense is, no matter how good, and I point back to the 2016 Alabama defense, that was absolutely an elite unit. The last play of the national title game where Deshaun Watson hit Hunter Renfrow on the pick play to win that game with 1 second left. That was Alabama's 90-second snap surrendered by the defense. Clemson will run 92 plays that night. No matter how good your defense is gassed when you get there. Your defense is gassed when you're getting to that 65, 70 range. Alabama can run about 70, 75 plays. I like our changes. If we can run more and we can hold the ball long and we got third down conversions, that's keeping them on there. That's getting those guys winded. Our Mason Thomas is playing, so, that's a big win for the Sooners, and he's their best passer rusher, probably one of the better ones in America. But our defense has got to come to play too. And again, kind of leading into point 4, the turnover margin. That was the biggest key in the first game. And that's what these spreads don't take into account. They can't account for turnovers because you don't know. Turnovers are unpredictable. Each team may have 0. Each team may have 10. So you never know. And unfortunately, something that our defense did well all year long was take the ball away. Well, in that game, they didn't take the ball away. And they didn't create any turnovers. So, and Oklahoma created 3. Now, 2 were created by their defense, 1 was created by their special teams. So, and again, they scored 17 of their 23 points off of those. So, if you look at the positions that we put them in, 1 was a pick 6, and they had short field on the other, and then they got a field goal out of the other one. So, just, a 17-point swing right there, for the Sooners in that first game, that's what killed us. But what gives me a lot of hope, and I know guys like Bray Hubbard can create it, and you can tell that's been a really big emphasis for Alabama in practice this last week, creating those turnovers. We know that we can do it. We know we're able to, because Kane Womack has really instilled in this defense how to create turnovers, and we've done a very good job at that the last 2 years, I think, personally. But something that gives me a lot of hope, and now I'm going to kind of get into my preview and prediction for this game. So, Alabama, Oklahoma, ABC, Friday night, December the 19th, 7 o'clock. Chris Fowler, Kurt Herbstreit on the call in Norman, Oklahoma. So, on the road, playoff first round, win or go home at this point. There is no tomorrow, as they say in Rocky Balboa. There is no tomorrow at this point. The winner goes and takes on Indiana in the quarterfinals in the Rose Bowl, which I really want to do. I really want Alabama to get a shot at this. And I don't want to hear for the next 9 months that Alabama didn't deserve to be in, and see, we told you so, because, Oklahoma beat them, for the 3rd time in the last year. I don't want to deal with that. And, Oklahoma is one of the 2 teams we have a losing record against. It's them and Texas. And Oklahoma, we just can't seem to beat here recently. The last time we got a chance to play Oklahoma was, 2018, and, we beat them in the Orange Bowl. But before that, we played them 2013 in the Sugar Bowl. We lost. Before that, it was like 2003. We lost. And then, we played them, last year. We lost. We played them this year in Bryant-Denny. We lost. And, but here's something that gives me a lot of hope for this game. Now, is it harder that it's on the road? Yeah. Is it harder that it's going to be cold? Yeah. Is it harder that it's going to be at night? Yes. Is it harder that the Sooners are going to have one of their best pass rushers healthy in this game, and R. Mason Thomas? Yes. But something that gives me a lot of hope is that, even though, granted, it was in Tuscaloosa, we played outside of Georgia SEC title, we played the worst game we did all year. From a turnover standpoint, from a not creating turnover standpoint, and just from just a sloppiness point of view, playing wise, and lost by 2 points. That's what gives me some hope here. And I'm not claiming any moral victories like our little brother Auburn likes to do. They always like to say, well, we fought to the end. We battled to the end. All right. We took Georgia to the wire. We took Bama to the wire. We took all these other teams to the wire. You still lost 7 times actually, and you had your 5th straight losing season. So, and your 4th season without a bowl. But we're not going to get into that. They're completely irrelevant. But I take no moral victories, but it does give me some hope for this game, knowing that, again, the ball bounced a little bit Oklahoma's way. Oklahoma did some things a little bit better, but we played well enough on defense to win that game. And technically, we played well enough, despite the mistakes on offense, to still come back and have a chance in that game. We just couldn't finish it out. Now it comes down to they came into our house a little over a month ago and won. Absolutely disgraced the Script A. Spit on the field. They think they own us. And now we get a chance to go to their place and redeem not only this year's loss, but last year's loss there where they stormed the field. So I've heard all this stuff, the dynasty dies, Friday night. These players are hearing this. And I think the biggest thing that we need to go in there and do is, one, we got to protect the ball. Ty has got to be efficient in this game. Ty has got to get back to his old self. We've got to have a run game. We've got to establish something of a run game. We've got to move the ball. We've got to have long, sustained drives. The play calling's got to be up to par. On the defensive side, we've got to shut down their offense. We've got to create takeaways. And the thing about takeaways is that we're going to have a defensive touchdown in this game. We're going to have to give Oklahoma a taste of their own medicine. We're going to have to make them earn it as well. And I think in this game, I think it's going to be a barn burner, but I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, just like the first one wasn't. 2-point margin, 23-21, Oklahoma got us. I think it's even less this time. I think both defenses are even better. I think when you look at that, I think it's just going to be who cares first. It's going to come down to the turnover margin. Which defense can create turnovers and put their offense in a good position to score and give them short field. And, I think Connor Talty's gotten more confident since that incident, against Oklahoma. And you know what I just really feel this week? I really think that Talty is going to win this game for us. I really see Connor Talty stepping up on the road, getting his redemption, and winning us this game. I see Alabama and Oklahoma coming down to the final minute of the game. Alabama has the opportunity. I think it's tied. I think it's 17-17. I think Alabama can drive. I think Ty Simpson puts them in a good spot. And I think Connor Talty wins this ball game on a last-second field goal and sends the Tide to the Rose Bowl. 20-17, Alabama is my prediction. But it's going to take all 4 quarters. We've got to put this team to bed. And we've got to start fast, and we've got to keep the foot on the gas. We know this is our season, and this is it. So, it is a 1-game season from this point on. And I believe in this team. I hope they don't stress me out. I really want us to do well in this playoff. But either way, year 2 of Kalen DeBoer has been a success in my book. Would love to have been SEC champs, but to have us in the SEC title, especially after how we started the season at Florida State, we got huge wins at Georgia, at Missouri. We beat Tennessee. We beat LSU. We beat Auburn for the 2nd straight year in Jordan-Hare. So, 10 wins. We're in the playoff. But we don't want to just get to the playoff. We want to come and take over the playoff. We want to just do more than take part. We want to take over, and we want to advance in this thing as far as we can. And, that's the goal. So, we're going to hold on this Friday night, and we're going to see what this game has in store. But we got to come to play because Oklahoma's going to come to play. And Brent Venables is, he's going to have the defense prepared again. And they have their home crowd right behind them. It's going to be loud. Those lights are going to be bright. It's going to be cold. But I think the Crimson Tide can get this done in Norman. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, X, and TikTok at the.bama.factor. We are at 29,036 followers on Instagram. Guys, it is December the 16th. You have 15 more days to help us get to 30K on Instagram before the end of the year. That was the goal for this year. I know we can do it. I am super excited about seeing what this is going to come down to. So, we're less than 1,000 followers. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. Anything that you can do helps. Just know that I appreciate all of you. And enjoy the college football playoff this weekend. Either way, regardless of the result, next week we will be here to recap the Alabama-Oklahoma game. I hope it's a good recap. And obviously preview potentially what is next, whether that be preparing for Indiana in the Rose Bowl or prepping for the offseason and transfer portal season. So, guys, as always, good night. God bless. Roll Tide.